Good evening. I think we are live now. Welcome, everyone. This is called In Preparation for Landing. And my name is Carrie Aaron, and I'm here with my co-host, Marci Brockman.
Hello, everyone.
We have a couple other folks that are going to be joining us tonight. We have Kiera Colson. Kiera, you wave to everybody down there. Kiera is a senior in high school, and she lives in South Carolina, right? Is it Columbia? Columbia, South Carolina? Okay. And then I have my friend Gail Stroh, DiPreta, who's also going to be joining us. So
hi, Gail.
So let me tell you what we're going to talk about tonight, and Marci and I'll get started, and then we'll ask the other folks to join us along the way. I am the author of a book called Project Career Quest: Navigating the Journey to New Opportunities Waiting. And Marci is the author of a book called Permission to Land. And so because I work with job seekers or anyone that's, looking for work that's more meaningful and purposeful and so forth, but helping college students and professionals primarily, but I wanted to partner with my co-author, or well, not co-author, but fellow author is the word I'm looking for, Marci Brockman. She wrote Permission to Land, which is an autobiography about her life. And in there, she talks about her career journey and so forth. And so I asked her to join me because she happens to be a high school English teacher. She has 11th and 12th graders in Long Island, New York. And so, this was just a great way that we could not only help college students, but really we should be starting with high school students and getting them ready. And that's part of the reason why I asked Kiera to join us tonight, because she is a high school student. And I think I said that correctly. You're a senior in high school?
I'm a junior.
A junior in high school. Well,
and a published author. Wow.
And a published author. We're going to talk a little bit about that as we move through here. So that is,
she's on fire.
Impressive. She is. We have all been published through the same publisher. It's called Author Academy Elite. And Kiera is actually the youngest author ever. She was published when she was 16. She's had a birthday since then, so she is now 17 years old.
Extremely impressive.
And so forth. And I won't ask anybody else to share their age, so we won't do that. But what we're going to talk about tonight, so I look back on trying to remember what we talked about the last couple of weeks. We come on every Thursday, every other Thursday, so twice a month. Anybody else to share their age, so we won't do that.
Sorry. I was trying to look at us on Facebook to see if anybody was here, and I had the volume on, so I was hearing twice of us.
A little. So anyways, well, one of the things that we talked about a couple of weeks ago is we talked about internships for high school students, for college students, as they prepare to, get some experience before they go into the job market. And last time, Marci just really opened my eyes, and hopefully those of you that may have caught it, we talked about college entrance essays. I don't know, Kiera, if you were able to catch that, but a lot of things that, I wasn't aware of the fact that because of the coronavirus and so forth, that, a lot of kids going to college and graduating this year and going to college haven't been able to take the SATs. There's a lot of things that they haven't been able to do. They haven't been able to do as much volunteer work and internships and things like that. And so their college essays are going to weigh even heavier, have more emphasis towards their college entrance. So what we decided to talk about this week is resumes. Okay, now I help professionals put together resumes all the time. I've been doing that for over 12 years now, and I'm going to get in the middle here. It's like sitting around trying to figure out how to get in the middle of this, right?
It shifts it all over depending on, and Gail disappeared. I don't know what happened to Gail.
Oh, I know. I don't know what happened to Gail. Anyway, but so I help professionals, and I've been doing that for like 12 years now. And I go into big companies like Cisco and IBM and Novartis and Corning and, big companies like that. And I help their employees when they've been laid off to put together their resumes and interviewing skills and so forth. And, it's important, obviously, when you're professional to have a resume. But it's also important to have a resume when you get out of college, because you're going to be looking for your first job. And I've worked with college students before. Some of them actually have a lot of experience to put on their resumes. And it's very, very impressive as they go out and start looking for work. And then I work with other folks, other college students who have practically nothing to put on their resume. And so what I wanted to talk about tonight is not specifically like, you do this on your resume and then you put this in and this section and this section, but I want to talk about the importance of building a resume, okay? And this is something great to do, not just start even in college, but really in Kiera as a junior in high school, start now. And obviously, I mean, she's amazing. She's already started building her resume, and she can certainly coach and teach a lot of you guys and have some great advice for folks. One of the things, and Kiera, in a minute, I'm going to ask you some things, and we'll talk a little bit about your book and so forth. But one of the books that I'm reading right now is called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. And many of you may be familiar with Jack Canfield because he and Mark Victor Hansen wrote these books called Chicken Soup for the Soul, right? Everybody's read at least one of them, Chicken Soup for the Dog Soul, Chicken Soup for the Golfer's Soul. I mean, there are, all kinds of chicken soup books. But he and
Chicken Soup for the Vegetarians.
I mean, it's for, yeah. And but he wrote this book called The Success Principles, and they just recently put out a 10th anniversary issue of it. And it's such a good book that I actually bought the audio book that I'm listening to in the car and then going through the book as well. One of the things I was reading in here today, which was really interesting, was something. Let me just read a little bit of this to you. It says, Pat Williams is the senior vice president of the NBA's Orlando Magic basketball team. He has also written more than 70 books and is a professional speaker. When I asked him what he felt the greatest secret to success was, he replied, figure out what you love to do as young as you can, and then organize your life around figuring out how to make a living at it.
That makes sense.
Doesn't it? And Marci and I talked about this in the beginning because she and I both kind of went down this avenue of we got out of college and we did this and we tried this and we did this. And, and it took us a while to figure it out. It took her a few years. I think you figured it out way before me. And then you finally figured out you had an aunt or someone said, Marci, you need to be a teacher. We've all known that you were supposed to be a teacher. And she never even thought about that. And so, went back to school, got a teaching degree, and she's been teaching now for 25 years, right?
Right.
Okay. And I got into the corporate world, and fortunately I got into a company called Bell South Telecommunications. And from there I was able to do a lot of different things, but I really wasn't sure on my career path. And it still took me quite a while to figure it out. So what Marci and I are trying to do with this in preparation for landing is to help young people figure out, and I know you don't have to figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you're 17 years old, or even 21 or 22, or even sometimes 25. But the sooner you figure out and sort of have a direction to head in, then you can, just like you said, then you can build your life around that. And so that's why I wanted to talk about the importance of building a resume and starting to, think through this process now. Marci, what do you do with your Kiera now? How do we do that?
She's coming back.
Okay, she's coming back in here. So, Marci, what do you do specifically? There she is.
There she is.
She was
on her side. I don't know.
For a second. What do you specifically do with high school students as far as, do you guys talk? I know you talk about, writing their essays for college and so forth, but what do you do regarding like putting together a resume or things like, do you ever talk to your students about that?
Yeah, I do. In the spring, I do it with the juniors, and in the fall, I actually haven't yet, but in the fall-ish winter type, I do it with my 12th graders. And I give them models, and we read a couple of articles about why resumes are and CVs and so on. And we talk about active verbs to really show and be able to describe exactly what the duties are for each of the jobs that they've had, and they're high school kids, so they haven't had that many jobs, but even things like coaching or tutoring or, volunteering at their local church or something, like all of these things like community service can all be added to a resume, especially when you've only had like one part-time job somewhere, or you could even add babysitting, because that's an actual thing, someone's trusting you with their kid. So we talk about how to phrase each of the activities and how to structure it and the different formats and so on. And then I give them a bunch of samples and then they write their own.
Okay.
And then they hand them in, and I make adjustments and critique it and so on. And, it's a bit of a process, but
so you're doing more the grammar and the structure around it and so forth. But what I want to talk about tonight is the importance of thinking about what can I do to build my resume so I have something to put on it. And that's where I'd like Kiera to come in, because she's done some really awesome things in the last, I don't know how long, when you started your book. I want to give you a little background on Kiera, and then I'm going to ask her to share a little bit with us. But Kiera's dad actually wrote a book, which I have. It's called Unlocking Your Divine DNA, which is such a great book. And I remember when I read this, I said, oh my gosh, this is truly God inspired, because I mean, the stuff he has in here is just amazing. But I love it because, especially people who are of a faith, to think about, what's my God-given purpose, right? And I have a quote in my book that says, God's gift to us is potential, and our gift to God is developing it, right?
Makes sense.
So I know, Kiera, your dad wrote this book, and maybe he was your inspiration. And then Kiera wrote and published this book, which I purchased. It's called Twin Tales. It's about two mermaids, right? And but Kiera, what I want to know is, I'm just making an assumption that your dad inspired you, but tell us what inspired you to do that. And then tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, because I know that you actually have a coaching program now that you're going to be helping high school kids, so that coaching them through the process of how to write their own book and so forth. But all this stuff that you're doing is, you're going to have an amazing resume before you even go to college. So
that's awesome.
A little bit about your journey and what inspired you to do this.
Well, thank you so much for having me on here. It's such an honor, because you guys are all amazing authors. But you hit it basically straight on it. I've always loved writing, but my dad definitely inspired me to make that my profession, because when he wrote his book and then he won the Author Academy Elite Award in 2018, that's when I really realized that being an author, speaker, coach could be a profession. And then once I developed my book, it took me about 9 months to write it and get it into the ready stage for developing it and publishing it. But after that, that's when I really realized my purpose. Like, I knew I loved writing, but after I wrote my book and I got to talking with a lot of other teens, I realized that my passion, my purpose was to inspire teens to develop their purpose. And so right now I'm developing my coaching program that's just launched, and it's really to help teens discover who they are, work on productivity, things like that. And if they choose writing a book, I just want to help people discover who they are so that they don't not necessarily waste time, but they avoid some hardships that happen in adulthood that a lot of people could have saved if they had discovered who they were or met the right people. Because I want to make sure people get connected, because connections mean a lot. And just connecting with you guys, it's been amazing. But writing my book has been a blessing. It's definitely inspiration from my dad, inspiration from God, because without God, none of this would be possible.
Yeah. Is that cool? Hey, I have a question. Kiera, I want to show you. I actually have a mascot, and Gail knows who my mascot is. She's met him before, but I'm going to show you who my mascot is. And you see this guy right here?
Yes.
Have you ever met my mascot before?
Sam Clemens.
I have the hardest time. I never know which way to turn him, right? Okay. So this is my mascot, and his name is Mark Twain. Okay. It's not Colonel Sanders. No, it's Mark Twain.
Sam Clemens.
Yeah. And Marci would know as an English teacher, right? And the reason I'm showing that to you is, Kiera, is because I want to ask you if you know what Mark Twain said the 2 most important days of your life are.
No, I don't.
Okay. This is his quote, and it's on all my emails and everything, and it's in my book, one of the quotes in my book. But Mark Twain said, the 2 most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day you discover why.
That's awesome.
Isn't that
That's a
cool?
great quote.
Isn't
Fits
that
your
a
coaching program, Kiera. You should use it too.
Well,
Yes.
that's my purpose, is to help people discover their why. And it sounds like, similar to what you're trying to do now. And again, not every teen that if they come through your coaching program might want to be an author like you, but just the whole process of thinking about it at a younger age and start thinking about, what do I want to do with my life? I don't have to have all the answers now, but you know what? With a little bit of guidance, a little bit of coaching and some mentoring and some people to inspire them, it's amazing. I mean, I can't even wait to see what you're going to do when you go to college and when you get out of college. It'll be like, I already said this. I said, I'm going to be saying, I knew her when, right? I knew Kiera when.
No, what's important, it's something that Kiera, you just said, was that there are many kids who probably don't know what they want to do. And so just by having conversations about these things, about thinking about what kinds of careers are out there, the kinds of things that we're interested in, where our talents and our skills and our predilections lie, it opens us up to a whole new way of thinking about the options. Like you said, that you didn't even know that being an author and a speaker and a coach was a career option. Like that was a legit thing. And I think that at least half of the kids in your graduating class are going to wind up working at jobs that don't exist yet. Yeah. And so being open and flexible to things that come up, to career opportunities or educational opportunities or connection opportunities, I think will be how they eventually find their success and figure out what brings meaning to their life and makes them happy and all that sort of thing.
Well, Gail has read my book, again, Project Career Quest. And one of the things I do in here is chapter 6 is Gail's favorite chapter. And in that chapter, it's all about, whether you know what you want to do or not, we have to think about what is it that we really, I was reading in this book today, and he said something about, we were all born, this is Jack Canfield's book again, it said, you were all born with an inner guidance system that tells you when you are on or off purpose by the amount of joy that you are experiencing. The things that bring you the greatest joy are in alignment with your purpose, right? I mean, and one of his exercises is to list out, make a list of 20 different things that you really enjoy doing, and then ask yourself, is there a career? Could I build a business around this? Could I build my career around this? And start thinking about that. And in my book, chapter 6, I go through those things and I try to get people thinking about, what are your likes? It's also important to think about what are your dislikes, but what are your values? Kiera's values at 17 are a lot different than my values I'm not going to tell you my age. I told you that, or Gail's age, or, or your dad's values. I mean, the values are different when you're younger. And as you, mature and get older and your life situation changes, your kids are gone or, whatever, your value, I'm not saying that your values change necessarily. They could still be the same, but your priorities, that's what I was really thinking of, our values may shift a little bit, but our priorities change, those types of things. So, regardless of what age you are, those are things to take into consideration. And in my book, all of chapter 6 is about getting people to think about those things so they can start, I don't want people, here's what I don't want people to do. I say this in the book about myself. I say, I used the dartboard approach when they came to me my junior year in college and said, you haven't declared a major yet. You need to declare a major. And I was like, and I didn't really do this, but I feel like I did. I feel like I, picked up a dart and threw it, and wherever it hit, that's what I was going to major in, right? So I chose political science because I really didn't have a clue. But had I had more coaching, more mentoring, opportunity to take some assessments like the Myers-Briggs or Strength Finders or something like that, I know I would have been heading more in the direction. I ended up where I need to be, but it took me a lot longer. I mean, oh my gosh, what if I was where Kiera is today? I mean, at 17, had I had that much insight and already, knew that that's where I got my inner joy from, and again, you're very blessed because of your dad being there and he sort of paved the way for you. So Gail, do you want to jump in there and have anything to say? I know you had your nephew that lived with you and you raised him through his high school years and trying to help find direction. And I think a lot of his friends were always at your house and so forth.
Well, it was a very meaningful chapter because and I went through the process as well. And I learned a lot about myself. Abe learned a lot about himself. And it's funny because in knowing himself and what environment he excels in, he was able to weed out a lot of jobs that didn't even pay him to apply for. So it was a very, very enriching chapter in knowing yourself. It really forces you to identify your likes, your dislikes, what brings you happiness, what makes you uncomfortable. Really, really the greatest chapter in the book. One of the greatest chapters.
Yeah, and I know that I did Abe's Myers-Briggs, and we knew that Abe he's not the corporate kind of guy. I mean, he is not the kind of guy that's going to sit behind a desk and do desk work, computer work. That's just not him. And so that's, he may not have known exactly what he wanted to do, but we were able to weed out certain things very quickly.
What he wasn't suited for.
Yeah, we knew that, there were certain, I mean, he knew, but through the work that we did together, that there were certain, things that he would not find joyful, or he would not enjoy those types of things. So Kiera, what kind of, being in high school now, I mean, do your friends ever talk about stuff about their future or, like internships and things like that? What kind of stuff do you hear from your friends?
I know. So I've got a couple friends. Most everyone, probably 98%, do not know what they want to do. They're kind of lost. I'm in a school that is very focused on high school, college, and making you look towards that, making you try to decide earlier, because there's different classes you can take that you can end up, being a hairstylist by the time you're done with high school. It's very cool, but also I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on kids to decide quickly, which I don't think that's necessarily the right direction, because it adds a lot of anxiety, and there's so many different classes that you can pick. So I feel like right now, a lot of people, even with COVID and all that, there's so much anxiety trying to figure out what they want to do. Even tomorrow, like no one knows what they want to do, but there's a lot of clubs. Students who are in clubs, like I'm in student council, I'm on the executive board, and I notice that people who are in leadership, they're a lot more directed and more focused on what they want to do, whether that's doctorship and stuff like that. But I feel like people who aren't as sure, they feel kind of lost, especially when none of us are really able to connect right now since we just stay 6 feet apart. It's really difficult to try to make those connections. So that's why I've been really focused trying to connect through social media and lives and like that, to try to break that barrier that a lot of people are having and trying to figure out what they want to do, but they can't really talk with anyone because everyone's kind of like, are you okay if I step 2 feet closer,
I was teaching my class today, just to piggyback what you were just saying, and I've all these kids sitting 6 feet apart in desks really far apart, and they're all wearing masks. I'm wearing a mask. And then I asked them to just share with somebody near them what they wrote. And they all looked at me like their eyes bugged out, like they were scared, like we're allowed to talk to each other. And I'm like, you're wearing masks. You're 6 feet apart. I've heard you yell in the hall. You can speak to one another. Just turn and have a conversation.
Yeah.
It's okay. You won't spontaneously combust.
Yeah.
And they were like, wow, we can speak.
Yeah. Well, let me just say that this conversation about building your resume isn't about, it doesn't mean that you have to know what you're going to do, but it does mean that you want to think something. You do want to think about, okay, so Kiera says she's on the executive board, a leadership board. Are you playing a sport? Are you, do you want an internship or something? I have a friend, I worked with her daughter last year. She graduated from college. She was on the soccer team and she was like the star soccer player. So she's got, that background, but she wants to start vet school. And vet school is extremely competitive. As some of you may know, vet school is harder to get into than medical school.
Really?
In order to get into vet school, you have to actually have I forget how many hundreds of hours of work that you've already done, internship work with vet practices or something like that before you're even going to get accepted to vet school. So she has to think about building her resume. And she did a trip to Africa and did some work over there.
Wow.
She got some kind of mission trip and she did some veterinarian medical work. Her uncle, she's fortunate because her uncle started the specialty animal hospital here in Cary. Gail, you've been to that one with me, but her uncle that actually started that. He and another man, so they were the co-founders of that. And so she's had opportunity to work with him and his practice. But, my neighbor next door, she's thinking about going to vet school. She's a senior in high school this year, but this summer she did a 8 or 12 week internship. She had to go an hour and a half home. I think, Marci, we talked about this on one of the earlier shows. She had to go Sunday nights. It was about an hour and a half to where her parents both grew up because she couldn't find an internship here in Raleigh. Went on Sunday nights. Her mom would take her. And they would stay at her grandmother's house. And then she worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and they drove back Thursday night. But she got those hours in. But she's thinking right now as a senior in high school, if she wants to go to vet school, which will be after 4 years of college, she's already starting to build her resume. And that's all I'm talking about is for people. It doesn't matter. You may end up in a completely different direction, but still you think, am I on the school newspaper, or it might be sports related, or it might be student body, or it might be but something, I guess we lost Kiera again, but something that you're doing now so that when you get out of college, in particular out of college, maybe even out of high school, as you're trying to get into some of the better colleges, the college of your choice, the more that you have there that, when you put together that college essay or whatever, to show that you have, been doing something productive with your life, right? And again, it doesn't mean you know exactly what you're going to do for the rest of your life. We don't want to put that kind of pressure on kids, but get out there and do something, right? And start building that resume. And Kiera, you are just going to have an amazing resume by the time you get out of high school. I don't know is it the system that keeps dropping her off, or what is it that's?
I don't know.
Probably.
Anyway, So anything else as we wrap this up, the importance of just, I do have something else I wanted to say. Two things, actually. One is about Kiera specifically, because I'll go ahead and do that now. I have asked Kiera if she would come on the next show, the next time Marci and I get together, and if she would share a little bit more about her, the program that she's putting together and things like that. So we're going to put this out. And it'll just be an interview of Kiera next time, and hopefully as an inspiration to other high school students. So, but I did look on the calendar to see what 2 weeks from today is. And do anybody know what two weeks from today is?
Thanksgiving.
It's Thanksgiving. So we may have to figure that one out. I don't know if we want to do it on Thanksgiving evening or whatever, but we'll work that out and so forth. So I appreciate Kiera saying yes to that, and look forward to hearing more from her and sharing more about her book and her career program. I mean, not her career, but her coaching program doing with high school kids and some of her successes and things like that. So, and then the second thing I wanted to say, and Marci, I haven't talked to you about this, but the other night it was on a phone call. I'm part of the Fire Ring group at the Igniting Souls now. And somebody was talking about to help them with some of their social media stuff and all. They actually have an intern. It's an unpaid intern, but I think this person's a college student.
Okay.
Who's helping her with a lot of her social media. And then she's going to write, recommendations for this person. And I thought, ooh, I like that idea. What a cool idea. And it might be something that, even some of your high school, seniors and juniors are probably, technically savvy, where some of us like myself, not so technically savvy, and could probably use some help with our websites and things like that. And just something to think about. I wanted to throw it out there. If we can find some folks that might be interested that need some internship work, whether it's at your high school or somewhere else, I want to throw that out there because there's a lot of folks, authors like myself, Marci maybe, but other authors out there who are looking for some help and might be interested and maybe have that relationship with somebody as a, paid or unpaid intern to help with some of the challenges, the technical challenges that we're going through. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I thought it might be. So to wrap it up, anything else that you guys have to say? Kiera, any last words of wisdom for the rest of us?
I would just say that, in my opinion, everyone that's high school student, just get involved with anything and everything you can. Because if you don't know what you're going to do, the more experience you have with trying different activities, rather try it now and see if you like it than go to college for it and realize at the end that you really don't like that.
Exactly.
So
absolutely. So it serves two purposes. One, it gives you some experience to say, I do like it or I don't like it. And two, regardless whether you like it or not, it's still experience and it helps to build your resume. So
exactly.
Thanks. That is great words of wisdom. Gail.
Yes, I have a question for Marci.
Sure.
What is your book about?
My book is about, it's a memoir. So it's my, a vision of my life. Basically, I grew up with a mom who was a bipolar, narcissistic and an opiate drug addict. And her emotional abuse of me, basically, I grew up being a people pleaser and I grew up not trusting myself and I grew up feeling like everyone else's life was my responsibility and that I didn't really deserve one. And it just gave me a very toxic relationship template that I used throughout my life. And I met my first husband was the male version of my mom, and that wasn't so great. That wasn't so great at all. And so I took I took a look at my life through that lens, having come out the other side and having worked really hard at my own personal peace and wellness and mental health and really focusing on breaking the intergenerationality of mental illness and addiction. And so that's what it's about.
And Marci's getting ready to launch her own podcast based on her book.
Yeah.
I read her book and it was fabulous. And I really had a hard time putting it down. And actually, Marci, I would text her late at night and go, "Oh, I can't believe this happened." And, I had a similar thing like that. So, but I do want to say, because we're kind of off topic here, but I do want to say that she is getting ready soon to launch her own podcast based on that. And she's going to be going on basically to help people go through their own healing process. Is that right, Marci?
Correct. Yeah. I'm going to interview people who either help others to heal, therapists and nutritionists and doctors and whoever, and people who they themselves have gone through transitional trauma healing, etc. So I'm a firm believer that we all are made better. We all are connected and impassioned and empathic through the sharing of our stories.
Absolutely.
And that's how we connect. And so that's my aim. That's what I'm going to be doing. And I'm calling it Permission to Heal, which goes along with the Permission to Land, which is the title of the book. And Permission to Heal is actually the Facebook group that was an offshoot of the book. I had just been creating all of this random content, and I was wondering why I was having trouble building an audience, why I was having trouble getting my message out there. And I came to the conclusion last Friday, this was the epiphany, last Friday, that the reason that I'm having trouble building an audience is because I'm confusing them. That I'm doing too many different things. And if I'm having trouble wrapping my head around it, someone else is going to just scratch their head and change the channel, Oops, where'd Carrie go?
Where'd Carrie go?
So I have a platform and I have design. I just designed the logo thingy dude yesterday. And I have the first 3 or 4 guests lined up. And I'm having my first Zoom meeting to get to know my first guest tomorrow.
Excellent.
So I'm
That
hoping to
sounds
have
good to
3
me.
or 4 of them recorded before I release so that I'm always a little ahead and I'm not like scrambling. Oh my God, I have to put out a podcast tomorrow and I don't have anyone yet, you know? So, yeah.
Well, that sounds fascinating. I hope I can catch 1 or 2.
Yeah, I don't know when I'll release it, and I'm not sure what day of the week it'll go, but yeah, it's like a 6-day-old idea, but you know, I don't sit on things. I'm already in it with both feet. So
I have 3 generations of addiction in my family.
So you could be on my show.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got a lot to say.
Okay, all right, 5 guests lined up. Excellent. Where'd Carrie go?
Right. Well, I'm going to have to take off because dinner is calling my name.
Oh, very talented food.
My husband's cooking tonight, so.
Mazel tov. I like that.
Oh, yeah.
Good to marry a man who can cook.
Okay, nice meeting you guys.
Nice meeting you too. Thank you for
Nice
popping on.
Sure.
Kiera, it was so lovely to see you, and we'll see you next time, whenever that is. We'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Take care.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I don't know where Carrie went, but thank you for joining us in preparation for landing, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.